What do you think the Falcons should do at quarterback after this year?
It's a very interesting question, but I feel like I'm probably leaning like something in the draft because
Okay.
it's a weird year where you might be able to really get a guy you have a lot of faith in long term towards the back end of the first round. So I feel like, and at that Falcons may probably didn't beat the back end, but you get what I'm saying, mid to back end, they could somehow squeak out the playoffs here that it would be back end, but if not middle, I mean, there's probably going to be a couple good QBs sitting right there, right around that time. I feel like that if you're the Falcons, the draft avenue is probably the way to go. But then on the same side of things, we talk about like the bowl windows, and it's like with the Falcons bowl window, it's like, do you really have time to let someone develop for like 3 or 4 years with this roster right now? It's a question you're gonna have to ask yourself if you're Arthur Blank.
So you could draft a QB, which I would feel like if you want like a Jaden Daniels, you're gonna have to go move up. I feel like if you're where you're at and you want to take a quarterback first round, you could possibly trade back and get assets because like I've seen a lot of mocks where Jaden Daniels is sneaking into the top 10, where he's going to be that QB3. And that happens every draft season. QBs sneak up, but then in reality, they might not. I mean, we saw Will Levis go in the second. So you could draft a QB. You could trade for a guy possibly like a Justin Fields. Or another suggestion that I saw was going to get Ryan Tannehill. Arthur Smith was the reason his career was revived. And you can look at the Falcons, and I'm not saying the Falcons are a Ryan Tannehill away from competing. They might not even make the playoffs. But you can make the argument that with just decent quarterback play, this team can win your division.
Without a doubt. That's why we said all year from the beginning of the year. That's why if you're a Falcons fan, you're so disappointed. Falcons and Saints were pretty much shaking hands on that feeling of like, okay, we finally have a good roster. Like, and our division sucks. Like,
Right.
There's no excuse not to go do something this year. It's the same thing. Where, yeah, and I think my thing with that though is I agree that it would definitely be an upgrade over now. I just feel like that doesn't feel like super serious. Like it feels more like back to the whole thing of moral victories. It's like, it's just an upgrade over now.
Right.
But it's like, are we going to Lombardi land with him? Probably not.
It's just
So
something
like,
you could sell to your fan base is like, look, we can really do this now.
if anything, I'll say as a Saints fan, go get yourself Tannehill because I'd be comfortable then knowing that the Falcons aren't going to Lombardi land.
That's how it felt with me when the Bears almost like when they got Andy Dalton. And I was just like, okay, well, so like this is it.
Yeah, no, but like I know the Andy Dalton feeling too. So yeah, it'd be a prime example. It's just enough to compete in there and maybe compete to the playoffs, but back to Lombardi land. If you're not giving me a ticket to Lombardi land, I do not want you.
So Kyle Pitts has been stepping up, 2 touchdowns the last 3 weeks. Do you think he's finally going to be coming back? We've been waiting on this since his rookie year.
I'll keep saying it. It's on Art Smith. If Art keeps dialing up for this man, I have no doubt about it. If we want to keep using him as a decoy, Art, we're going to keep getting decoy results. Let Kyle leak out. Keep running more of these boots. Let him sneak over and up. We need it. We need at least one of those a game. Fuck that. I need at least 5 of those a game. Keep dialing up the boots. Keep getting K hits long, especially on condensed type of formations where if you're playing like a 4-3, a 3-4, and you got linebackers on the field, man, Art, get Kyle deep, bro. Get him deep. There's nobody covering him that's not a tall, big box safety at this point. And like I've said, there's a very few guys in the league kind of that are in that mold that can even really cover Kyle Pitts. Like, he's the most malpracticed player in the whole league, and I'll keep saying it.
Do you think that the Falcons should have just stuck with Heineke and they would have been better off?
So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because one of my notes that I had, let's be honest. Would you say the biggest fault of this season, that's why you would say Art Smith is on the hot seat, is that he put more faith in Desmond Ridder than Taylor Heineke? Because, again, we knew what Taylor is. Like, is Taylor taking you to Lombardi land? No. But with what they were this year and what we knew that Desmond was and what we know Taylor is, at least Taylor gives you the fun, and it gave you a pretty fair shot to make the playoffs. And if it started from the start to finish, it's like now. On
a late game or just when you have a game in control, I would much rather trust Heineke just because, like, yes, he's a little bit more of a gunslinger, I would say, than Desmond Ridder, but when Ridder makes those mistakes, it's almost just like you grab your head, you're like, oh, what are you doing? Like when Heineke fucks up, it's like, okay, well, it's like a Jameis interception where it's like at least you were going deep with it.
It makes you think. When I watch Desmond, I think to myself, it's the only thought that goes through my head. He's thinking too much. That's the worst thing when the worst trait to have out there, unfortunately, is like you're doing less doing, more thinking. His mistakes feel like it's because he's thinking too much. Not enough doing, more thinking. Reverse that, and Desmond Ridder might look like a good player, but he's just out there thinking too much.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. The Falcons, they have a 12% chance now to make the playoffs. They are currently 7-8. Looking at their division, you have them in front of the 7-8 Saints and then behind the 8-7 Buccaneers. So obviously there is a lot of fluctuation that can happen in the NFC South, but the Falcons making the playoffs just does not seem very likely. Obviously this offseason can be big for them depending on if they keep Art Smith or not. Obviously there were some comments made that he might be around regardless of the result of the season, but as of late, it feels like that's changed. And I think a reason that it's been kept around, that he has been kept around, is obviously, like, I think that defense is a lot of the reason they're competing. And if the defense wasn't as good as it was, and Art Smith is calling the offense, I don't think he's here.
No, not at all. That's the last note I really want to touch on was that, we had to give him a shout out. Zach Harrison, rookie last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or last 2 weeks, he's had 3 sacks. He's had 3 all season. Breakout incoming.
The Falcons defense has really been like a very not talked about high point for them. Like no one discusses the Falcons defense. It's the only reason they're staying in games.
Oh, it is. And Jesse Bates is the MVP of that defense. I said MVP season incoming. All pro season incoming. Not MVP yet, Jesse. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but we definitely get it all pro this year. And you got to love it if you're a Falcons fan.
Moving over to the other side, we have the Colts, who are 55% chance right now to make the playoffs. They have the Raiders and Texans up next. But honestly, I'm very frustrated with the Colts because this just felt like a game that they should have had in the bag easily.
And for my narrative, if they won this one, I feel like this might have been the one where you really, especially with the other win after this week, you could have really locked up that Shane Steichen Coach of the Year. Like it's shaky on that. And again, 55%. I don't know. That feels higher than it should be too, with how everything around the AFC is going right now. I get it is because you get the Raiders and Texans up next, but it's just this was and Colts fans would agree, this was one of the most disappointing games all year for any team, especially when you had a chance to basically not lock up, but almost lock up playoff spot. Yeah, this against the Ridder Falcons, it's all I can say.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. Jonathan Taylor has been hot recently. 4 touchdowns the last 3 weeks, 5 all season. But the offense, the passing game, just wasn't existent without Pittman.
If anything, Michael Pittman is making his case for MVP after this game. I'm saying it as part jokingly, but also, I mean, let's be serious for a sec. This man is the most valuable player of this offense. To this
Michael
offense,
Pittman?
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
If Michael Pittman's not out here, it's a completely different
Not
offense.
to say he's better than JT, but it's like without like their top receiver, like Kyle Granson and Will Mallory were their 2 leading receivers. That just can't it can't happen, especially when you're playing with your backup quarterback.
Pittman takes so much attention away from everyone else that it's a good cohesive unit. But then when he's not out there, you see what happens. Where you got to go to the big boys a little more often. No one else getting separation. Not a good recipe.